Hi everybody, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra. Today on John's Briefs here at C2 Tactical with my good friend Tim Forshee. And we had a recent one on the channel that I think you're qualified in a unique way to talk about as a former judge pro tem.
Let's walk on some ice and let's talk about that, yeah.
And we had an Alabama magistrate judge who got into a Donnybrook, a fracas, a brouhaha with a woman outside her courtroom. And then later on, when lady who got arrested and then came back to get her car, started chipping at said judge when said magistrate judge went out to her car with her 14-year-old, the judge produced a gun from her purse. And she got in some trouble for this said thing because in Alabama it is illegal to carry a firearm into a courtroom. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was not the case for judges. So let's talk to the former judge about it.
To win the fight after the fight, you need help. After a use of force, I trust Firearms Legal Protection to help me win the fight for the rest of my life. From their 24/7 attorney-answered hotline to coverage for the use of all legal tools, Firearms Legal Protection has you covered. Get a discount by signing up at the link below.
I mean, my first thought should be that this is different depending on jurisdiction.
Well, the legality of bringing the gun into a courthouse, that does vary by jurisdiction. It is legal in Arizona. We have a statute here, I think it's, 1113, something like that. But it is legal provided that the judge has competence with a firearm. The way that's always been measured in the past is with a CCW permit. So when I was a judge in Scottsdale, Arizona for over a decade, I was on the bench probably an average of about 1 day a week or thereabouts. The presiding judge was a dear friend of mine. He was a cowboy, but very pro-gun, and he made sure that every single judge in that courthouse took my CCW class. So they all got their CCW permits from me, and we never really talked about who carried and who didn't carry. It was kind of as it should be. I mean, it's concealed for a reason. If you come up to me and ask me if I'm carrying a gun, I'm going to ask you about your sex life because to me they're both just as rude, right?
Tell me about your circumcision.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't ask that, and it was sort of a don't ask, don't tell. But if you'd gotten caught, quote unquote, it was legal. So it was something I certainly did. I know Monty did, and I think at least a couple of the other judges did. I'm not sure they all did, but I think most of them did. And the reason is because crazy things happen in courtrooms. I mean, we've had a couple of shootings in courtrooms. There was a very famous one in Atlanta where a guy got access to one of the guards' guns and caused a lot of mayhem and killed some people, killed a judge. So there's reason for this, right?
You know, a judge has unique kind of risk profile because people get unhinged and blame judges.
And they focus on the judge, exactly. Yeah. The judge is the symbol of the system persecuting you, and so they do take a lot of crap. And even when I was a young clerk and I saw the wrath of a guy in court that was chained and shackled to the desk and still spitting at the judge and spitting at his attorney and stuff. So yeah, you do see these crazy things in court. So there is not that you need a legitimate reason to carry a gun because anything can happen anytime, anywhere. We all know that's why we carry guns. But in the courtroom, yeah, you've got, as John said, you've got this loci of craziness and criminal intent and evil all focused in there, and the justice system is focused on it. And it's a flashpoint. So it's a very legitimate thing, I think, for judges to want to be armed. It's legal in Arizona. Apparently it's not in Alabama. Again, it's under your robe. If you shut up about it, I'm not sure how anybody would have figured it out. If you're stupid enough to pull it out and wave it around and muzzle your own son and muzzle the general public in front of a camera, that's another story. So, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously, again, where my bigger thing was, if this judge had simply recognized, oh, I don't like that lady. We had been in a brouhaha, and we are here at our car. Son, get in the car. And then gotten in her car and boogied off down the road.
That would have been great. When she sent her son back into the courthouse. Great, that was smart. Sure. Why didn't you go back in the courthouse with your son? Tell security what's going on, call the cops. I mean, it was mishandled. In other words, my focus on this video wasn't should the judge be in trouble for having a gun in the courtroom, because we're not talking about the gun in the courtroom, we're talking about the gun on the street in the / parking lot. And what I saw was abysmal. If that had been anybody other than a judge, they should have been treated very harshly, and it sounds like she's being treated harshly, and I'd have to say appropriately. I'm sorry to say it, but yeah, I'm not mad because the judge was armed. I think that's a bad law. I think you should reconsider that. Judges who are competent with guns, I think, should be allowed to have guns in court. I guess the question here would be, would you and I feel that this judge was competent with a gun? And I would have to say no.
From what I saw, didn't make great decisions with that.
Horrible decisions with a gun, which to me is the most important thing. I'm not talking about marksmanship. I'm talking about judgment, right? You know, it's common sense, and I didn't see a lot of it from this young lady.
And I will say my general recommendation as somebody who teaches use of force, who gets to talk to people who are facing the criminal justice system, is not to use a firearm as a defensive display.
Nope.
especially one in hand. If maybe you're wearing it in a holster and that becomes visible during, thing, hey man, back up, I don't want problems, maybe. But you put that gun in hand, man, and all of a sudden, district attorneys don't like it.
Nope.
And they get all kinds of frustrated. And those kinds of charges get expensive.
Yeah.
If you get convicted of them, they get really consequential.
I mean, you're talking about those, it's always going to be a felony. A lot of these felonies, if you're convicted by a jury, have mandatory prison terms. A lot of them are deemed in Arizona to be what are called dangerous felonies. If it's a dangerous felony, you've got additional sentencing problems. Plus, you can never get it off your record.
Never.
In Arizona, it's not that difficult to get most felonies off your record unless you've got 8 felonies over the last 3 decades. If you've got a felony and nobody was injured and it was not a dangerous felony, there's about a 90% chance I can probably get that off your record for you. If it's a dangerous felony,
never.
God himself cannot get you off of that unless God changes the law. So it is a very, very deep, long-lasting scar on your life. So yeah, you just can't be doing this stuff. Yeah.
So remember, friends, I'm a big fan of concealed carry.
Me too.
And discretion is the better part of valor. And yes, would that judge have gotten caught with that gun going into court if she was using the same, the same screening process that other people have?
Which I'm almost certain she wasn't.
Well, apparently, because she had a big old.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a court staff entrance where you don't go through security. Any court that I pro tem'd in.
Well,
so, yeah.
I will also say I have been in court in this fine state that the court happened to be using a different building for a particular trial I was involved in because of some construction issues. But they had the metal detector set up, and guess what? I saw the attorneys outside. I shook their hands, and they all carried all these big binders, walked right through, set the metal detector off, said hi to the guard. The guard was like, "Hi guys, how are you?" I walked right through with them. Hey sir, how are you? And we just walked right through, setting the thing off big time.
When I first started practicing law 35 years ago, they didn't have metal detectors at the courthouse back then. Once they got metal detectors, you had to go through a security screening process with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, and then you got a court security pass, and you could just literally bypass security. And that was great. It was wonderful. It saved all kinds of time. I didn't have to stand there in line, take off, my belt and all the wonderful stuff you have to do. The problem was there was a couple bad apples in that barrel, and a couple lawyers got caught smuggling weapons/narcotics into their clients, and now suddenly that's all gone. So now lawyers all have to go through screening just like anybody else. So, and that's fine. I'm not saying we're special, but I am saying that if I passed all the screening process to become an attorney, et cetera, one would think that would be trusted with the same level of authority and trust as a judge, for instance. Doesn't work that way, but it is what it is.
Doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So, again, here in Arizona, if this incident had happened here, she would have been allowed to carry a firearm.
Right.
In Arizona, inside the courthouse, so that wouldn't have been an issue.
And you said what she's being prosecuted for is only that?
Yeah. It was.
I think she's lucky,
It was
to be
a
honest.
misdemeanor.
Right. I think she's very lucky because I think there were some endangerment, / arguably even ag assault issues going on there. So I think she came out pretty lucky on this thing.
And maybe that's the lesson, right? Is that the presiding judge looked at that and said, here's what's going to happen. You are going to eat this misdemeanor.
Yeah.
And you are going to say how sorry you are, and we are never going to have this problem again. And judges will do that from time to time, right?
Yeah.
They go, okay, so your choice. We can either do this the easy way or the hard way.
Right.
And of course she goes, yes, Your Honor, I totally understand. And
the lesson's going to be learned one way or the other,
Yeah,
which way you want to
We're
go.
going to learn this however we want.
Yep.
So, of course, as regular peasants, we don't have this right. Okay, so the peasantry, we have to go through the metal detection and all that stuff. At least in Arizona, I like the fact that they're required to have lock boxes there so that I can carry up to that, hey, I have a firearm to check. I've done that many times and never had a problem with the guards. I mean, they'll usually go, all right, whatever, and go over here. Okay, here's what I will explain. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to unsnap my thing and take my gun out in the holster so that I'm not handling a gun out here. I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to take all my other tools and stick it in there. And then they usually are like, well, I need to maintain the key. Okay, fine. Here's the key. And so, I'll come back and get you when it's my time to leave. For better or for worse. All right, fine. And I don't mind as long as we have metal detection and everybody is going to.
Yeah, that's my whole thing about when I go to a venue that looks where all the entrances are secured and or you have to go through metal detectors to get in. I'm a lot less worried about that because now I know that nobody else in there is going to have a firearm either, at least in theory. So if it's one of those terrorism movies where the guy's got a German accent, then the caterer snuck it in or something. But generally speaking, nobody in there is going to have it. So I'm a lot less worried about being disarmed while I go to the basketball game when I realized that the only people that are armed at the basketball game are probably law enforcement officers. That makes me feel a little bit better about my safety. But I still don't like it. I still think I should be trusted to have a gun on an airplane, for that matter. I would, same with you. I would trust you on an airplane with a gun.
For sure.
But that can't be said for everybody. So,
Yeah, maybe one day I'll tell the story of having to talk with the head of NBA security about me making a public statement about how trashy their security was for the NBA Finals when I went to a game. I don't know if I was put on a blacklist after that discussion, but it was definitely...
I know they don't like being criticized about it. I have a case involving that peripherally, and they don't like it. But I won't mention which NBA franchise has the worst percentage record of weapons being snuck through during checks. It might be fairly close to where we're sitting right now, but I'm not going to say who it is. It might rhyme with nuns, but
I can say I've talked to their head of security about those things, and he was nonplussed.
Yeah.
But that's a neither here nor there. Anyhow, big point on this one. Yeah, usually a judge can. The bigger issue here, in my opinion, was the misconduct involving the firearm that got to the issue of she shouldn't have had a gun inside, and then she came outside clearly and had not dug around the car, so it wasn't in the car. It was out of her purse that she just had.
Which she had to root around for. I think you said it was nearly a 6-second draw before she got it out. So helpful.
So many problems. So know the laws and follow them, because the last bit I would say here, and when you are outside your home today in the United States, assume you're being recorded.
Yep.
It's not going to always be the case. I'm not going to say there.
I would even say maybe inside your home, unless you're sitting on the toilet. Assume that you're being recorded. And I guess maybe even there sometimes. But you're on camera. Just admit it.
No shaming from me.
Exactly.
Okay? But certainly outside your home, just assume that what you're doing is being recorded. And then to quote probably one of my favorite phrases from Masad Ayub, is that if you comport yourself according to the standard by which you will be judged, then you will not find yourself lacking in the judgment.
An easier way to remember that is, if you wouldn't do it in front of your mom, don't do it.
There you go. Be a good, sane, sober, moral, prudent person, and then that way you don't got to worry about it. Tim, appreciate the discussion.
Absolutely, always, buddy. My pleasure.